I'm Charlie. I am primarily a bass player, but I found my way into synthesizers, and I am originally from San Diego, and went up to Orange County for a bit. Now I'm back, and really, I got into synths. My first synth was Novation Ultranova, which is a pretty cool first synth to have. Found it on Craigslist for 350, which is pretty decent deal, I think. And that kind of was the gateway drug to other synths and random weird sounds. And I heard of Eurorack and I've looked into Eurorack and I was scared of Eurorack. I think my wallet was more scared of Eurorack than I was, but regardless, fear kept me away. And I then have since learned of AE Modular. It's a different type of modular synth format. It's a lot more economically friendly. It's a lot more DIY friendly. It's what the guy who founded this format, he calls it modular for everyone. And really, it's the idea is that you just go in there and you do it. And the original Kickstarter version, he kickstarted it, I think, 2017 or so. Had the original kind of breadboard DuPont wires and connectors on the modules, and he just kind of went at it. And it was originally kind of more of a noise maker type thing rather than something to play melodies and all these other things. It was kind of designed to be his modular noise system, but it has since grown. Right here, this is the starter rack 2. Basically, this is where a lot of people start with AE Modular. This is kind of their preset system. And let's get that playing so you can actually hear what you're actually able to do. And for reference, that cost of that system is about, I think it's about $500 for the whole rack. Let's see. There's the guy. And then and so I'm trying to use every module on this guy, and I tried to get a lot of different voices going. So I have a wasp filter, I got a state variable filter, two envelopes, actually three oscillators, logic, sample and hold, noise, a delay system, which is CVable, and an 8-step sequencer. And just kind of got this going, and then I can just, modulate the speed a little bit. Oh. So it can do a lot, and it's tiny, but I think it really does have full sound. It's not a, it's inexpensive but not cheap, I guess is a way to phrase it, because it's something that's, I think, is actually made pretty well, and I've decided to invest, as you can see with this rack, way too much money into the system. So they started with very simple components, and they kind of kept it with very simple components. Everything is kind of what it says on the tin. There's no having to dig through manuals. There's not a lot of that. There's a couple of modules that are like that. They have some where you can program your own things into them. They have it called the grains or the TBD, to be decided. So you can load up different digital, you can have a speak and spell voice going on. You can have it do Morse code. You can have it whatever you'd like. It's Arduino code, so you can program it to do things for you. And it just really is a system that has grown and grown. There's now about 80 different modules uh, that this crazy German guy makes. And it has his team has kind of told him stop making new modules for now because we need to keep up with demand, and that's probably the biggest downside to the system right now is that there's a bit of a lead time. There's a bit of a wait time when people order the modules, they get excited, and then there's a little bit of silence until it ships. So that's the biggest downside. But it's probably on the order of months, so several months at a time. So unless you order it from somewhere like Noisebug, that's their U.S. distributor. Uh, they have it in stock, and so whatever they have listed, you can get pretty quickly. But ordering straight from the manufacturer, and I didn't mention the manufacturer's name, it's Tangible Waves. That's the name of the manufacturer, and the format is called AE. It stands for Abused Electronics, or yes, Abused Electronics. I was trying to remember, is it electrons or electronics? And yeah, it's this. He just developed this, and it's all based off of 0 to 5 volts. So no negatives. You don't have that to deal with. You don't have to worry about blowing things up and gray smoke coming out of your case and things getting plugged in the wrong way. I've had modules that I've plugged in halfway and nothing has destroyed or been unsalvageable. So it's was a very good way for me to learn more about synthesizers and the module format and what modular can really be. Uh, Additionally, what one of the great things that they have is a very positive community. So, they will welcome anybody coming in. They want modular to be for everyone, and that kind of has become the community's mindset. There's no gatekeeping. There's no, oh, you have to have this or that, or there's no real snobbery about it because, hey, this is something that a lot of people who can't get into Eurorack have kind of had to not necessarily settle for, but kind of looked for an alternative. And so it's a very welcoming community. We're happy to have people who do interface their racks with Eurorack. On this larger one, I have a whole bunch of jack inputs and outputs. They can be routed however you want. So if you do put a Eurorack signal through here, it automatically reduces it to 5 volts, so it's not going to fry anything on the inside. Additionally, they have other things that make it play well with other devices, such as a little Volca module bridge. So you can plug straight into from the Volca module to this guy, and then from there to the rest of your system. So they do a pretty good job. One of the big things that they're developing, they said they've been developing this for a while, is a good MIDI module. They haven't quite done that yet, but I think that's in the cards coming up. So there's a lot of just, I think, a really positive thing. There's a lot of kind of interesting people doing stuff that with this system. And so that's why I kind of wanted to share it and talk about it and be happy to talk about it. And if you really want to hear what the system can do, there's a good, well, every year they do a compilation and they do it for charity. So if you buy it on Bandcamp, any of the proceeds goes to charity, and it's called the Aether Waves, AE Thir Waves, and that's a good community just sample of what people are able to come up with this system. And since volumes 2 and 3, they had the requirement that everything has to be done through an AE system in terms of the sound generation. So they can do post effects and things like that, but all the signals really that you're going to use should come from the system. And so really those are great ways to just see what are people able to do with this system. And I think as people were kind of playing with this, as you guys were coming in, you can hear that it's a pretty capable full modular synth. And so let's get this going here. And by the way, I'm routing all this whole table off of this little wall wart. It's a 9-volt with a pretty nice amperage. Let's get this guy. And so just this one power supply is providing power to the whole rack. And other nice things about it is if you look into the, actually, this one. This is like one of their modules. So it's just a PCB and a MDF board. And one of the nice things about it is that there's multis built in. Like for so many of these different modules, they're like, we have these extra sockets. Let's just make them multis. And so you have all these kind of utility things built into all these other modules. And so you just like, okay, that saves me space in terms of having other things. Newer things that they're also working on is a even smaller format. So for those with young eyes, or magnifying lenses, or those big jeweler lenses, they have them in third sizes and half sizes. So they have a little PCB that would stick on, that mounts to the board, and then you just stick the the module on top of that. So it's pretty cool because one of the guys, a third-party developer, this is one of his modules, Wonky Stuff out of the UK. He's making a bunch of drum modules. So you can just pick up a snare that's a little third, and then you can get a Logic module or something else, or you can get the kick drum that's a half one that he's making. So there's ways you can kind of even more granularly modular, more modular synth that they're kind of creating with it. And that came actually from the community, because one of the this guy, I'm blanking on the manufacturer. He's out of France. He just kind of threw this up on the forum, and he's like, "Hey, this is an idea I have. I want to make a little Logic module, and I don't want it to be this whole thing. So here's this little like third format." And then now they've adopted that and kind of made it a standard thing. And this module is something that is DIY. So I got this because I bought my rack used, or actually bought 2 racks used. And this guy threw this in because he's like, I'm not going to use it. He actually was, unfortunately, his eyes and his hands were not cooperating for the system. And so he's like, I can't use it. Please, like, I have to get rid of it. So he included this for one of the systems I got, but just a great example of just simple, just pushing buttons to get a gate. And so then it creates this into a much more of a performance type thing. And so really what I want to do with this, I talk about this, but I want you guys to come up and like touch it and see what it's like. I mean, it's not fine metal. It's not heavy equipment. It's not going to replace a 500 series compressor or 500 series gear. It's not what that's meant to be. It's kind of generated from this ethos of being abused electronics. And so kind of getting this 5-volt thing to get all these signals and to make all this music is kind of really what it was all about. So yeah, and please come up and touch and explore and enjoy. Any questions about this system or anything like that? Yes, please. I do not know Eurorack sizing, unfortunately. Oh, yes. Let me repeat it so it gets on the recording. It's how's this sizing compare to Eurorack sizing? There is a Eurorack mod, like case adapter that you can get for this system, and the power module can actually receive the power from a Eurorack power supply, and then you can have a sub AE modular system inside a Eurorack enclosure. So it does play well with others. I think the easiest way, or the kind of the ways to get around some of the supply issues with like immutable instruments closing up shop almost, is they have this module called a topograph, which is basically a grids, and you can get a power, a topograph, a whole bunch of the eighth inch inputs and outputs, and just put that inside for less than a grids. So it's kind of something that can supplement, and it's kind of, I mean, it plays well with others. That's the big thing about it. There's no stackable cables. That question was, is there a stackable type input or output? There's just plenty of molts everywhere. That, I think that's the way they kind of got around it, because this is an envelope follower, and it has just one input, and then they just kind of make it so there's 8 inputs, or 8 inputs and 8 outputs per thing, and then if they don't actually use it on the circuit, then they just kind of bridge it and make it a molt, passive molt. They do have a buffer, an active buffer, in case you don't want to have a voltage drop or something like that. But there's a lot of little utilities built in that just make life a lot easier. And what, oh, additionally, with their development, what they have been doing, I have some discontinued modules actually on here, and they're discontinued because they're just single LFOs, and now the new ones are dual LFOs. So you can't buy just a single LFO by itself. Now you have to get 2. And so I think they're just are kind of making it so that you just get so much more in such a small package. And yeah, one of the things I really enjoyed about this system is that it's very vanilla in a very good way. In that, you know, it says VCO, and it says this kind of filter, and it says that, and I know what I'm doing, and I can kind of expect what I'm going to get from it. There are some exceptions, but it's really accessible, and that's one of the strongest things about this format. Do you have another question? The question was, what's the ratio between analog and digital? Uh, they have quite a bit of digital components. They do have a lot of full analog ones. I think from this starter rack, the delay is probably the only thing that actually has a digital, that touches the digital audio. On this rack, I have a wave tables. I have a digital kind of noise byte beat sampler type thing. It has a couple of those other ones I say that you can kind of program. Those are basically Arduino type things. So they have kind of a good mix of them, but it's kind of unabashedly analog in some of those ways, in terms of get stuff that's not doesn't want to quantize too well. The scaling, you kind of have to mess with it, and it really will respond to temperature. This drone that I had nice tuned up at my house the other night is way out of tune now, and it's you get a lot of very analog behaving components. It's just par for this course. Sure. So let's do a little jam. Let's see what we got. Let me move this guy. over here. And then this, we got, let's see what we got even playing. Nothing. That's not good. Let's see. No? What is this? It should be these two. So, let's see. But this isn't. I'm gonna hit a kick. So we got something. Let's see. Oh, because the LFO wasn't plugged in. Let's see what we got. Let's do this. Two. I like to do that. Let's get this. Let's get some noise going in here. People were patching other things, and I'm like, where's everybody's sounds going? That's why. No, that's this. Let's do. So, who would like to come up, touch, experiment, play with it? It's beginner friendly. One more question. So the question is, how do you deal without having negative voltage? Basically, all the CV signals are 0 to 5. So it's just positive 0 to 5. Correct. If you're gonna, well, you can add to it, but you could either, there's ways to kind of try to modulate it and get what you're going for. Especially, they have a couple CV tools where you can choose the offset and then the attenuation. And so then that way you can kind of dial it in and then set how much of that signal you want to modify to something else. As for what audio does, Audio is still 0 to 5, but it's biased on 2.5, so it's just offset. So then that way you don't get kind of like asymmetrical clipping or things like that. Any other questions? Please come up. Please see. Experiment, because you definitely cannot see here. You can't even see from far away. Yeah, no problem.